Hi, I'm Katie Kramer, President and CEO of the Boettcher Foundation. Welcome to Colorado Leadership Stories, where we talk to everyday, courageous leaders who have made transformational impacts in their communities and are building a better state for everyone. You'll hear from leaders and organizations and communities throughout the state as we explore the idea that leadership is an activity that anyone can do. This special edition podcast episode is especially important because it marks the 2-year anniversary of the Colorado Leadership Stories podcast. To celebrate, we are recording live at Scholars Experience 2025 in Loveland. Scholars Experience is the Boettcher Foundation's annual convening of all 200 Boettcher Scholars attending Colorado universities, along with our alumni network and community partners. It provides an opportunity for our scholars to strengthen ties with each other and hone their leadership skills, forming the connections that will propel them through college and into their futures. This episode, you'll hear from Vanessa Roman, 2003 Boettcher Scholar, Pueblo native, and the Director of Scholarships and Foundation Programs at the Boettcher Foundation. Vanessa has over 15 years of experience in admissions and higher education, and for this special episode is joined by 3 of our amazing Boettcher Scholars who will share their experiences applying for college and scholarships. I'm excited to be releasing the new and improved second edition of All the Wisdom and None of the Junk, Secrets of Applying for College Admissions and Scholarships, a helpful guide that I co-authored along with Katie Craig that's meant to illuminate best practices in college and scholarship applications. This book contains the Boettcher Foundation's wisdom from over 70 years of selection and working with thousands of students to navigate the college and admissions process.
Well, thank you, Katie. I am Vanessa Roman, hosting today's special edition of Colorado Leadership Stories. I just appreciate you allowing me to sit in as guest host today. I'm a long-time listener, but first-time host of the podcast. And this is just an extra special episode. We are going to pull back the curtain a little bit and get some insights from some of our Boettcher scholars on their journeys in applying to college and scholarships. I think it's going to be a great conversation. I'm here in Loveland, where we're about to welcome about 200 of our Boettcher scholars, as you said, Katie, to the annual Scholars Experience weekend. I'm so excited. This is one of my most favorite weekends of the year. And this year at Scholars Experience, we're going to focus on the concept of the ripple effect. You know, how every connection we make, every idea we share, every act of leadership extends outwards, and it impacts so many others that we don't even realize or fully see. The conversations and relationships our scholars build here, they're not just going to impact their journeys in college, but beyond. They're going to create positive waves throughout their campus communities, in their communities back home, and throughout the world. I'm joined today by a panel of some of our amazing scholars: Jhoany Juarez from Burlington High School, Dylan Lindsey from Rocky Mountain High School in Fort Collins, and Arianna McCarty from Centaurus High School in Lafayette. We also have a live audience in the room of scholars and alumni, and these scholars on the panel attend 3 different colleges and are studying very different disciplines. So they'll provide a lot of diverse perspectives on the various journeys that they've had in applying for college and scholarships. Jhoany, Dylan, and Arianna, welcome to Colorado Leadership Stories. I am delighted to have you here, and I'm excited for this conversation. How were your summers?
It's good. Thank you.
What did you do?
I mostly worked, I had an internship in Denver, and so I've been working in public relations, communications for some big infrastructure projects across the state.
Yeah, my summer was similarly great. I spent it in a research lab, as always, making little engineered heart tissues that can actually beat, which I think is so cool just to watch the tissues actually beat in front of my eyes. So that was a very exciting experience this summer.
I had a good but busy summer. I worked at USMEF, which is the United States Meat Export Federation. So I spent 10 weeks with them at the Denver headquarters, just kind of learning about what they do and how they market U.S. beef to put it on the world's table.
Gosh, I feel like Boettcher scholars never just sit on the beach for the summer. This is a common experience from our scholars. Very busy, very productive summers. Thanks for all you're doing. So we're gonna dive in. Dylan, I would love to start with you. So you are an incoming senior at University of Denver. Go Pios.
Yes.
And you're studying political science and strategic communications. Can you start us off just by telling us about your journey with the scholarship and admission process? When did you first start thinking about college and the applications, and how did you start with your research? Where did you begin, and what worked for you? And then is there anything that didn't work for you through that?
Yeah, I think that for me, I was super, super fortunate that I knew very early on that I wanted to go to college and that that was going to be the next step for me. And so I started thinking about college pretty much as soon as I got to high school, which is a personal trait that I'm always looking to the next thing. And it helps me in some cases and hurts me in others. But this was one case where it definitely helped me. I toured my first school as a sophomore, going to my sophomore year of high school. And it wasn't a school that I really was considering. It wasn't one that I was looking at. It was the University of Indiana at Bloomington. And I just happened to tour it because I had family that lived out in the area. And so while I was visiting them, I went on my first college tour. And I think that doing the tour that early on really helped with the process because it helped me to kind of start to rationalize what I wanted and what I didn't want. It showed me, I liked kind of the character of the school. I liked the older architecture. I liked the history, but I didn't really like the size. And so that was something that I knew I could carry forward as I started looking at schools. And I think that it's also easy to go in person for the first time and kind of experience it instead of just reading stuff online. And so I did that. And then after that, I just, looked far and wide and really spent lots of times on Niche and Raise Me, which was a great resource. It's all micro scholarships. And so you put in every A you get, you put in every assignment you do. And that first started helping me kind of build up my resume of all of the little academic things that I was doing. But it also showed me kind of what scholarships could be attainable. And part of their promise is, you will get that much that they say you'll get at each school or more in scholarships. And I found that to be pretty accurate. And so it was really cool just to kind of rationalize, those small actions that I was taking in high school. The 3 hours I spent volunteering, doing something like this was equating to part of that college process.
That's great. That's great advice. It sounds like you started early. So that was a key piece for you starting in your sophomore year. When I used to work in admissions, I would find that students who started early touring the campuses really found what they loved and what they didn't about a college. And so I'm hearing that from you too, that you found that you didn't really want to go to a bigger school, and that really helped you define what your college search would look like.
Definitely. And I think it can be accessible. I don't think you have to tour your dream school as your first tour. I don't think you should. I think tour the school that's most convenient for you to visit so that you can start rationalizing what that experience is going to feel like. I was really fortunate. My parents were a great help. They went on a lot of tours with me. I went on tours with grandparents when my parents couldn't travel to see schools. And then Nicole Fosnot, who was my college and career counselor at my high school, was a huge, huge resource. I spent hours in her office just talking to her about different schools. She gave me strategies to make the application process approachable and affordable. She also really pushed me just because she had so much knowledge of different schools that I hadn't even thought of. But I would mention one thing that I liked about a certain school, and she would say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about, maybe this smaller school? Because especially looking at smaller schools, the biggest institution that I wanted to go to really towards the end started to narrow down to about 10,000 students for undergrad. And those smaller schools are harder to find. And so kind of narrowing that down and really having to dig deep and using artificial intelligence to put in the things that you like and having it generate, certain schools that you may want to look at was super cool. And it was just becoming a thing when I was a senior.
Nobody does this alone. This is a hard thing, right? Applying for college, scholarships, college in general is difficult, and you have to lean on your people to get through it. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
All right, Jhoany, I'm talking to you next, buddy. You're an incoming senior studying agriculture, business, and management at CSU. Go Rams.
Oh, yeah.
In the book, we talk about different strategies to succeed on standardized tests. And I feel like those two words, standardized tests, can just send a chill up the spine of a high school student sometimes, right? There's a lot of anxiety and stress around that. So let's talk through it. Can you talk about how you approach standardized tests in high school? Did you take the ACT or SAT? Did you take them more than once? And how did you make the decision about how to go through that process?
I took the SAT, not the ACT. I just didn't know exactly what it was to begin with. Our school wasn't too good at broadcasting it. They were like, oh, you're going to take a test. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I didn't really know about it, but once I looked into it, I kind of started to get a good idea, and I didn't study for it. I didn't know what the heck it was. So it was kind of rough at first. But I think to train for it, I had a history teacher that was always like hounding us on what to do before taking the test. And she always told us to get good sleep and eat good before. And it was like, that doesn't sound right. I feel like that's not easy. Yeah, that's too easy. But after I went through the SAT and I took it, I was like, wow, maybe that is the strategy to do it. And it just kind of blew me away how little things like that actually affect how your test can actually go. But one thing that I did take away from taking the SAT, I only took it one time just because I didn't have the time or opportunity to take it again. I was super busy, so it was just hard. And I mean, I didn't do too bad. And it was also that year that it was like COVID, so it's kind of weird with the SATs and SAT tests. So it was like, do I really need to take it again? Because they were asking for it at that time, but now I think it's a little different. So I think it's a good thing to start planning for it way before you even take it. And I know there's like those books, but I would say for that, if you're going to study for it at all, is probably read like 15 minutes a day. Just don't overboard it. It's not good for your brain. It's not good. You won't retain as much as you want. And I know that's how I am. Like my freshman year at college, I never knew how to study. So I was always just reading books and books for hours on end, and it does not help. So taking a break every 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I think helps a lot. And starting early. I think starting early is the biggest thing. Because, yeah, if you try to cram all that information, it's not going to help. But I would say also, if you're sitting by a student that is snoring during the SAT, I'd ask your proctor to be seated somewhere else, because that was probably the hardest thing for me. I think that's what ruined it. I had really bad allergies at the time, and I was sitting by a student that took probably 2 minutes to fill out the whole booklet, and he would just snore the whole time. So I had a really rough experience doing it, but I think the biggest thing was asking the proctor to let me move on and actually take it somewhere else, because that was rough. So if something's bothering you during the exam, I'd make sure to sit somewhere else, because that's going to affect you a lot. I know it sounds weird, but it's the little things. I mean, it's the little things.
Good nuggets I'm hearing from you is, I think it's an interesting contrast between what Dylan was saying about the resources that he had, and maybe you didn't have, your school you mentioned didn't have as many of those resources and the counselor and all of that, but you still found a way to access the test and the resources that you need. You found that teacher. You talked about the teacher that is an advocate for you. And that is such good advice. What I found is the most successful college applicants and scholarship applicants are those who have an advocate, somebody who they can go to for questions and advice. You just need one, right? And that's who you found. So that's great. And you mentioned, you took the test once. Some students take it more than once. There are resources out there too. I'll just mention that you can get fee waivers for many of the tests, the SAT and the ACT. If you have, financial need, there are other ways to get fee waivers. So my advice is to look into all of those resources. They are out there, and sometimes you just have to do a little bit of the legwork to find them. But it sounds like you did a good job with it and you figured it out despite the snore challenge.
I think one big thing to remember is like how I said in my time, SATs and SATs were not that big because of the whole COVID thing. It was kind of a different year for me. Yeah. But I think now schools are putting a lot more time and effort into it for their students. And I think that's a great thing, because I think those are great tests to have and good scores to know. So you can really enhance your college applications and help you out throughout the whole process. So I think it's a good thing that it's starting to come back, and it's a lot more popular now, and that's a great thing. So
yeah, it's a good point. Many schools are still test optional, but it's often a good idea to submit a test, or even if a school or a scholarship is test optional, because you want to put your best foot forward. And sometimes if you take a test a second time, you're going to see improvement. Most times you're going to see improvement in your score. So that's a good point.
Just one resource that I found to be really helpful, if you have the opportunity to take the PSAT, you can actually link your scores with Khan Academy, as they've partnered with the company that administers the SAT. Khan Academy will give you very personalized training and feedback based off of the questions you missed on the PSAT. And that's entirely free and very accessible. So I found that to be the most helpful in my case for learning when to use effect with an A versus effect with an E. But still get I generally found that to be a very accessible and very helpful resource.
That's great advice. I did not know about that resource. I wish I had that when I took the test. Thank you for sharing. All right, Arianna, your voice on applications is recently relevant. You've applied to some things lately, and you were recently awarded the prestigious Goldwater Scholarship to continue your research in respiratory pathogens at CU Boulder. And you are also an astronaut scholar. So we're so proud of you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Those accomplishments. And you're also like studying for a degree, right? You're also studying chemical and biological engineering at the same time. So you have applied for a couple of things, even though you're a senior more recently. So thinking back to high school, though, when you first began applications, can you tell us more about your strategies for some of those essays that you wrote for your applications? How did you decide what to write about? And how did you clearly communicate your story? What was that process like?
Yeah, so I think essays, honestly, are sort of the biggest make or break to an application. I think they're a really exceptional way to show an admissions or scholarship committee who you are and in some sense sort of give a personality that they can root for and want to push forth within an admissions or scholarship process. In terms of writing an essay, I found, honestly, this is advice that I'll give and give again. It's really just be yourself. When I was first debating what essay to write for my personal statement for college, I was sort of split between writing an essay about theater, which was a community that I was very involved in, or writing an essay about some of the research I was doing in high school. And in my mind, I was thinking, okay, the essay about research and this fancy scientific thing is probably the thing that they want to hear about. But when it came to actually writing the essay about theater and this community and family that I loved and really a place that I poured thousands of hours into was an essay that came far more naturally and I think really displayed me better. So I'd say first and foremost, in some sense, go with the essay that you want to write. Don't worry about what people are looking for. Worry about what part of you are able to put on a page. For me, that meant talking about theater and what theater and theater as an analogy for leadership meant to me, because that was such an important part of my high school experience. But in terms of just general essay and narrative creation, I would really just emphasize have as many people as you can read the essays. I've been very fortunate enough to have a lot of people in my life that can read the essays, and especially my brother has been really helpful in helping me just edit all of them because he knows me very well and he writes in a similar style, so he knows what I'm trying to say, even if I'm not really conveying it very well, and he can kind of poke saying, okay, maybe reword that sentence. But really just get as many eyes on it, because at the end of the day, an admissions or a scholarship committee, they don't know you. They will not have this background and they won't really have that ability to say, okay, this is what they probably meant here. So if you can get a lot of other people to read it and give their impressions, then you can sort of get a more accurate gauge as to how you are coming across on a piece of paper.
In what direction were you pulled when you were writing? That's a good strategy oftentimes when thinking about what am I going to write about? Just start writing. Start, put pen to paper or, open up that Word doc and start typing and see what comes to you naturally. And I love that example that the theater was, let's say, Nikki loved, and that you were able to relate that to leadership too. So great advice. And I would agree that the scholarship committees, they don't know you. And as much as you can utilize the essays to help them know you is great. So thank you. All right. So Jhoany, All the Wisdom, the book, discusses the importance of sincerity in writing in your natural voice, which we're kind of talking about already. So as you were applying for scholarships, did you ever feel pressure to write what you thought the reviewers wanted to hear? I actually remember reading your essay distinctly. I remember the topic when you were applying for the Boettcher Scholarship, and I know it was a genuine story. So how did you make sure that your personality came through?
I think that's the hardest things when it comes to looking at those applications. You just don't know what you want to say. And like Arianna said it great. I don't know, just tell your own story. It's the biggest thing to do. Because, you want to tell the committee how great you are and all blah, blah, blah. But the big thing is telling who you are and how you became who you truly were. Like, I was from a small town. I was like, I don't have a story to tell. I don't have anything that I want to say. So I almost didn't even apply because I was like, this committee doesn't want to hear that. Everyone has their own story. So you just got to find that thing. And truly, when writing essays, going back to that last question, it's like, if something's not coming to you, just rest on it, sleep. It'll come to you, even if it's in the middle of the night or in the shower, who knows? It'll come to you. Just start writing. Have a pen and paper right next to you at all times. It's going to come to you. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to tie in agriculture. I didn't know if I wanted to tie in my mentorship roles down at Burlington High School. It's like, just be yourself, do your own thing. That's what the committee truly wants to know, is who you are and how you became who you were and how you got those successes that you went through in high school. So it's just, a lot of times you do want to write what people want to hear, but sometimes you just got to tell your own story and be who you are, because no one's like your own.
I know students struggle with that concept a lot because you're and as a high school senior, 17, 18 years old, and you're barely getting to know yourself, right? So it's hard to think about, well, gosh, who am I and what makes me unique and special at that age? So another good strategy might be to talk to somebody that knows you well and say, what stands out about me? What do you love about me as my brother or my friend or my teacher? And that might start to get the ideas percolating as well.
A big thing that I really noticed was I saw those letters of recommendations, and they truly helped me remember some of the things that I should mention, because I was like, maybe those aren't really things that I need to mention. But once you see those letter of recommendation and see how they wrote them out, you're like, oh, maybe that is a major thing of my life, and it changed a lot. So I think letters of recommendation are great. So reading through those and then turning in your essays are a major thing as well.
Yeah, I didn't have the opportunity to read most of my letters of recommendation, but I would definitely emphasize the importance of sort of starting the essay writing early, and really just echo what you had said in terms of if it's not coming that day, that's okay. Make sure you give yourself enough time for that to be okay. You're not writing the essay 30 minutes before it's due, which I know some people do. I did that for one or two of my college applications. But not the Boettcher, and that worked out well. So, but yeah, I would just really echo that. I've been preparing to apply to a variety of fellowships for graduate school, and I was really struggling with trying to put myself down on a piece of paper for the Rhodes application. And I've been really struggling with that for the last month or so. And then I was sitting on a train in Montreal talking with Ian McLeod, another Boettcher scholar, and then it just sort of came to me, and then I just started typing away like mad. And so he thinks I'm goofy, but that's okay. But I would just really emphasize talking to other people is, at least in my opinion, probably the best way that you can, in some sense, sort of get to know yourself. And I think just voicing it makes it far more clear to see kind of the cohesive narrative.
All right, Dylan, you are an excellent communicator. So I have a good question about communication for you. How did you manage communication with schools or scholarship committees? You know, you got a lot of emails flying at you. You've got a lot of deadlines to manage. You have recommenders to ask about recommendations. You're a senior in high school, and you're also going to school at the same time and probably doing a lot of other activities. How did you?
Yeah, I think that one of my biggest recommendations that I tell anyone I know who's applying for colleges is create a new email address. It gives you an opportunity to make it professional, but also it gives you an opportunity to sort it all into one spot and pull it all into one home. So making one that's just all about school. It's still the one that I use for Boettcher. It's the one that's, carried me through my entire DU career. But I created it my sophomore year on that first tour. And every time I registered for a tour, every time I registered for anything, it was using that email address. And so, it helped keep my school email and my work email accounts clean so that I wasn't falling behind on other things. But it also kind of brought everything into one spot and was very searchable. I could look and see I want to dive into, Loyola Chicago, and I can look at all my emails from that. The other thing that I would say is, send an email. Don't just receive emails. And so go and find your admissions counselor. And like Arianna said, give them a personality to push for. That is, getting their buy-in is huge because they're the ones reading your scholarship. And the majority of the time, you're being compared against people from your region. And so it's one admissions counselor who's reading your application next to someone else from your region. And if you can reach out to them and build a personal relationship, it's really, really going to help with that admissions process. And even for schools that don't offer interviews, because a lot of the ones that I was looking at didn't do interviews. And I still wanted a chance to portray myself virtually or in person, but really portray myself and bring character off the page, because I felt like my essays were strong, but I'm a much stronger communicator in person. And so asking my admissions counselor, like, hey, can we set up a call to like chat through some questions that I have and things like that? It was great to get those questions that I wanted answered, but it was also an opportunity for me to bring myself off the page and say, hey, this is who I actually am. And they're going to ask you a little bit about yourself. And so it's a really cool opportunity to make yourself stand out. I think sending that email was huge. And then just being professional, using good email structure, using a subject line, a signature that includes your name, graduation year, where you're from, I think is really important. And log stuff in spreadsheets. I'm a spreadsheet person, but log, who your admissions counselor is and who you're engaging with. And when you go on a tour, make note of the people that you talk to on your tour. Make note of everyone that you asked for a letter of recommendation and give them a deadline. A lot of people that I asked for a letter of recommendation, I would just say, whenever you have time. And so many of them came back and said, no, when do you need this by? And so just being upfront and saying, hey, it would be great to get this back, by this date, and giving them plenty of time, but giving them a little bit of structure to that, I think also really helps.
That's great. The email address is key.
It's so basic, but it's so key.
It is, but it's, you know what? You also got to make sure that the email address is like simple, right? Like just your name, nothing like fun, cutesy.
Yeah, I did my name 2022 because that was the year I was graduating high school.
Yeah.
And it worked great. And check it daily.
Yeah. And you talked about like making sure your email structure, your emails to admission counselors and things just have to be well structured and make sure you're capitalizing their name and things. That sounds so simple, but you would be surprised how many people get that wrong. So
everything is considered. After working in an admissions office and having the chance to talk with different admissions counselors, everything is considered. Every interaction, every phone call. And so just be kind and be the part of you or the best version of yourself and be who you want to be seen as.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I know we've talked a little bit about letters of recommendation already, but I want to dig in a little more with that and ask Arianna about your advice about getting strong letters of recommendation. I know you've had to have a few with all the applications that you've pursued. Talk to me about that. How do you do it? Request those letters while being respectful of recommenders' time, and how do you begin building relationships with teachers and those who you think might be a good recommender for you later down the line?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, the biggest thing is just always ask early. Give your recommender plenty of time to write the recommendation. You can attach things like a CV or a resume or give them some sort of guidance as to what you're really looking for in terms of maybe the themes that would come out of that letter. And I found that to be really helpful, especially considering like the Goldwater Scholarship. They're very focused on your research potential and your leadership ability. And so I had one letter from my research advisor that I really wanted her to hone home my place in the lab. And then I had another letter from a professor who had seen me and interacted in a lot of departmental programming sort of scenarios. And so I was able to kind of convey that I was hoping her letter would be a little more leadership focused to sort of try to combine those into a more cohesive narrative. So I'd say sort of as much as you can. You can always include little tidbits in your email or in person, however you choose to ask, just to sort of guide letters in the direction that maybe you're hoping for. In terms of developing relationships, I'd say in some sense the biggest piece of advice I give to people in terms of general success for life, and that is always be the person that gives 5% extra. Be the person that stays at the end of a meeting to help clean up, be the person that volunteers for one extra thing, whatever that may be. It sets you apart from the rest of the crowd. And I think that really comes through to professors or coaches or whoever that recommender may be. It just gives them one more thing to remember you by. And it generally shows that you are a hardworking person and someone who really cares about being there, whether that be in class or at an extracurricular. I really think that is the best way. It also gives you just a little more time to chat with whoever the recommender is and develop a stronger relationship over time. I'd also say just really be vigilant about upkeeping those relationships. A lot of the professors that I will ask for letters I haven't had in classes for some time, but I'll still go and grab coffee with them every few months or things like that. So you can really just kind of keep building that bond and in some sense use as many opportunities as you can to sort of let them know a little more information about you and have more of a complete picture of who you are so that they are more prepared when they're writing that letter.
Sometimes that 5% is just like treating that human with respect and dignity, and like they are a human and we want to get to know them and you value their time. So I really like that idea.
Yeah, one thing that I'll add, just because it really caught me off guard the first time that it happened, was a lot of my letters of recommendation were blind, and so I didn't get to see them. But there's been a couple of people, as I've asked for letters of recommendation, who've asked me to write the letter. And it becomes a practice, especially when you start asking people of, higher status or more connections, and they just don't have time to write that letter. So it's challenging and it's hard. And I think separating yourself from yourself when you're writing it is something that really helps me do that. So it doesn't feel like I'm writing about me, trying to put myself into that mentor or that former employer's shoes to write that letter of recommendation has been really helpful. But don't be caught off guard.
Yeah.
Because that was something that really, really shocked me the first time that it happened. And it happened applying for schools, and it's happened again a couple times since then.
That's an interesting point. And one piece of advice that we give on that point is to make sure you're asking someone. It's not about necessarily the title, right? You don't need to ask the CEO or the president of the company you're working for, or your principal even, if they don't know you as well. It's more about who's good, who knows you well and can write a good letter. So that's a good point and a good lesson learned from that experience. So yeah, thanks. Jhoany, I'm going to jump to you. The book emphasizes that asking for help isn't strange, right? That it is important. We talked about that with the history teacher that you had. What would you say to a freshman in high school who feels maybe a little shy or unsure about asking teachers, counselors, or even other students for advice or help?
Oh gosh, I was that kid that was scared. So it's near and dear to my heart because I love making those connections and I love it. And without those connections, I wouldn't have gone through college and I wouldn't have been here in this spot right now. So it's really cool. And I enjoy that topic a lot because everyone's going to be scared. I was scared. I know all my friends are scared to talk to people, but it's one of the biggest things you got to overcome. It's super important. I'm still probably my best friend is the professor or the teacher that I knew in my 8th grade year. So it's awesome to know that there are people out there that want to be your friends. And even though they're teachers and they might give you an F on a grade or on an exam, they're still your friends and they're there for you. So it's a major thing. And even just community members. It's not just teachers or within your school. It's people outside, other employers, community members. I just like Nutrient Ag Solutions. Everyone there is a great friend of mine. And I just went out there and I cleaned their cars because I ran a little detailing business, as you guys know. And I loved it. So I just talked to them. I've had them read my letters of recommendations I've had them write a letter of recommendation and they did a great job. I mean, it's gotten me pretty far. So it's just making those little connections, just taking that extra step, just being kind, being nice to them. I remember Mr. Salvador in my band class, I would just clean up the chairs after our class because he hated doing it himself. So I stayed after, took 5 minutes, cleaned them up for him. And still, he texts me every now and then. He's like, hey, how you doing? How's college going? So it's just making those connections as soon as you step into high school, even middle school. Those middle school teachers are just as good as a high school one. So just being able to talk to them, be nice, be kind, be friendly, send them a letter every now and then. They'll love it. And it's a scary thing to do, I will say. Those teachers are kind of scary. Like my ag professor, he was scary. But like I said, he's my best friend now, and I've been working for him for 7 years. So it's like you just got to overcome the fear. It's going to be okay. One major person to talk to is your counselor. The counselor is a super easy person to talk to. That's their job, talk to them. So I think a counselor is a big one to talk to.
So I'll ask one more question of you all as a group, and then we will shift to the audience to ask a question or two. So I want you to think back to when you were maybe even a freshman in high school. I know that feels really like it was a long time ago, but think about back then and you were trying to figure out what to get involved in and how to spend your time. You only have so much time. How would you encourage a high schooler to choose activities that they truly care about instead of just trying to build a resume? We talk about that a lot, and all the wisdom we can tell on the other side of things when we're reading a scholarship application. If someone's just, padding their resume or doing things because they think that's what they're supposed to do, how would you advise a high school student through that?
Yeah, so I've actually had the opportunity to review a lot of applications for an REU at CU. So I've read a lot of essays and a lot of resumes, and like you were saying, it is very clear when something is really authentic and genuine and something that you care about versus something that maybe you're doing more to check the box. For me, I would definitely say try a bunch of things and then choose what you get excited to go to. Back freshman year of high school, when I was looking at all the different clubs, I went to a bunch of the first meetings and then sat down with really just like the entire list and then ranked them first to last.
You have a process.
I did have a process. I did have a spreadsheet, actually. A spreadsheet with alternating colors and conditional formatting. I'm a spreadsheet person as well. But I found that was really helpful, sort of just to allow me to collect my thoughts and really just base it off of what I was actually excited for and interested in, and then evaluate how much time I have, and maybe there are 3 things on Tuesday and only 1 on Wednesday, so I'll do the Wednesday thing and then choose one of the Tuesday things. But I would really just emphasize, go for what gets you excited and happy and what you look forward to at the end of a long school day, because high school is hard and frankly you're exhausted a lot of the time. So choose those activities and those extracurriculars that don't make you feel more exhausted, that instead kind of give you back that energy and make you excited to go do things.
I think, what you said in the beginning, try new things. Like I did FFA and I didn't know I was going to do it. It was my 8th grade year. I was in science class. Our ag teacher came in. He's like, hey, I'm looking for officers for next year. And I was like, no. And he picked my chair up and was like, hey, join me. I was like, okay. So it was just trying new things. I mean, I did pep band, FBLA, FFA, and between those 3, I really enjoyed FFA. And it's just because I tried something new. So a big thing is trying almost anything you can, even though you're going to be exhausted at first. But once you start dialing those things down and figuring out what you truly love, you'll feel it in your heart and you're going to find the one you love. So
sounds like FFA found you, right? Find FFA found you. Yeah. So glad it did, because look at what you're doing now.
Oh, it's a great organization, and I recommend it to everyone. Self-plug.
The only thing I would add to Arianna is, strive to do as many things as you can and then narrow it down and build that longevity with an organization. That's how you build those relationships with people who are going to potentially write letters of recommendation. That's how you're going to climb into leadership roles, is being somewhere for a longer period of time. But I give that piece of advice with caution because I was in Scouts and, I went through Cub Scouts, faded out, but then Boy Scouts, when it hit at 11 years old, I got really invested, really engaged. And it was something that I really enjoyed, but it was also a big resume piece. And then, I came out my sophomore year of high school. Scouts was not the most LGBTQ friendly organization out there. And it felt like this thing that I was holding on to and torturing myself to attend just because it felt like it was such a big part of my resume. My dad was an Eagle Scout, so there was a little family pressure added in there, but it was one of the things that I had to let go of. And it actually is the one and only thing that I remember talking about in my Boettcher interview was being willing to let go of that and prioritize myself. And so I think that willingness to pick the things that you like and allow them to change also as you grow as a person and discover new things about yourself is really valuable, and can also go to share a story and shape your story.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dylan. And I think that is so important. Sometimes people think that stopping something is a failure, when in fact, there's often purpose behind that and reason, and that takes courage too. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right. On that note, I'd like to switch gears to the audience. I think we have some audience members who have burning questions for our panel. One of our scholars is here and has a question.
Okay, hi, my name is Avon McCall. I'm a 2023 scholar from Greeley Central High School, and I go to the University of Denver. My question, I just was wondering, all of you talked a little bit about early prep and really starting early, but do you have any advice on applying late if your opportunities get changed, or you get new opportunities, or things change? What happens when you don't get that early prep?
Yeah, so I've certainly applied late to a few things in my time. I think for me, the biggest change in that process was, or rather biggest help in that process, was pulling on the variety of essays and letters of recommendation and things that I already had. I contacted professors who had already written me letters of recommendation, and went back to previous essays and maybe used those as a starting point for the next material. And I think that was definitely a very effective way to maybe sort of attempt to compensate for not having quite as much time to really prepare.
Great, thank you. Another audience question.
Hi, my name is Ella Swanson. I'm a 2023 scholar from Springfield High School, and I currently go to Colorado School of Mines. And as we all know, there are many rejections along the way. So I'm wondering, what was the hardest no you received on your application process, and what did you learn from it?
So I actually have a pretty good story. The Goldwater Scholarship you can apply for during your sophomore and your junior year. I applied for it during my sophomore year and got a no. And then went back and reapplied junior year, and was lucky enough to receive the scholarship. And I think that process was pretty transformative for me. I think going through the application writing process for that the second time, it became very clear to me how much more I had grown and sort of found my narrative and found what I wanted to do in a far more clear manner. And so I think that was really helpful to sort of remind me, hey, just because someone says no once, A, it doesn't mean they won't say yes in the future. But B, it's more of just an opportunity for growth. I think it was a really helpful time to allow me to reflect and look at my career path and what I was doing for what reasons, and come to the conclusion that I actually wanted to change that path. So I think for me, while that was certainly a pretty difficult no to receive, I think it was probably the best thing that could have happened in the long run.
And I would just add to that, celebrate the no's. Celebrate that you had the confidence and willingness to push yourself that far. I kept myself on a short leash during the application process and didn't really apply to any reach schools. I applied to 22 different schools and got 22 acceptances, which was it was great. It was super exciting, but something that I've regretted to this day is that I never found the limits of what I could do. And so the no's, I think, provide a learning opportunity and a place to kind of center yourself and find that you pushed yourself hard enough. And so I would say celebrate the no's because it means you pushed yourself, and don't live with the regret of not pushing hard enough.
What a great perspective shift. And that's, again, great advice for life. Y'all are dropping some wisdom here. We have another audience question.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing your insights and your values. And I'll ask a question about that. My name is Kimberly Guevara. I'm a 2021 scholar. I study at the University of Denver. And my question is, on that same note of staying true to your values, how do you do that with your interests, and how do you use that to shape your applications?
That's a good question. Thank you. I think the major thing is just remember who you are and how you got to where you are, truly. You got to know why you're there, why you enjoy everything, and just be true. Just tell your story, how we said earlier. I think that's the major thing, is remember why you love it and why you enjoy doing it. So just make sure you put it into your application, put your heart into the application, not just your mind. That's the big thing, because a lot of people just write what people want to think they want to say, but just sit down on it, think about why you're here, why you're doing this, and just put your heart to it.
I've also found for me that as long as I'm sort of following my heart and my values and my interests, the application in some sense sort of will naturally follow. There are a lot of times that I go into an essay thinking, what am I going to write? And then I look at what I've done and I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually cohesive in a weird niche way. So I would say kind of put your actions first, and then the application will come.
And this is a little less on the application side, a little more on the finding your school side. But one of my favorite mindsets is that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so think about who you want to surround yourself with while you're at school. And, college is for a lot of people the first time that they're away from their parents, and they're really starting to shape who they are. But you don't really control that much of that. You are shaped by those around you and the situations you put yourselves in. And so surround yourself with people who you want to shape you and who align with your morals and values, or the morals and values that you want to grow into.
Yeah, that was a great question, Kimberly. I think values can play a huge role in the application process, not only in writing the essays and the application itself, but like you said, the search and finding where you want to go to college and what scholarships fit with who you are as a person, right? So maybe, sit down before you start the whole process and think through what are those values and how can they play into the process. Thanks for your answers there. All right, we're going to take one more question from the audience.
Hi, I'm Colin Swanson. I'm from Springfield, Colorado. I'm a 2025 scholar, and I'll start at CSU this fall. I was wondering, if you could go back and redo one thing during your application journey, what would it be and why?
I think my application journey was pretty interesting. I turned it in, I think 5 minutes before the deadline. I know it sounds horrible, but it's because I wanted to rewrite an essay because I knew it was like, I have a different story and I'm not writing the one that I want to. So I think one thing I would change is review my application, my essays way earlier than I did before. But going back to that first question, it's like, it's okay if you're late to the game. You're going to get there. But I'm really happy I did that because I wrote the story I truly wanted to write. And even though I was late to the game, it turned out perfect because it's how I wanted to write it. So I think the thing I would change is to start early. Of course, that's always a good thing. And I typically do start early, but some things just get away from you. You get busy, you start working 3 jobs, and it's like, oh gosh, what do I do? Don't fall behind on major things, especially like scholarship applications, because deadlines come quick. The truth hurts whenever you see the application deadline and you're late. So you will always want to be early to the game.
I think I alluded to mine earlier, and that's just push yourself. Don't think, oh, I'm not Ivy worthy. Don't think, oh, I could never get that scholarship. I think most Boettchers that I talked to, it was an off chance. None of us thought we were going to end up here. And it's one of the biggest experiences that has changed my life. Push yourself and be willing to take the rejection if it doesn't work out. It can be hard when you're in that process. And I think that it's an opportunity to be honest and go ask other people for help. Going to those people who care about you and trust you and being transparent of saying, hey, I'm trying to push myself right now, but I'm just not feeling super self-confident. And it feels wrong to ask for that validation, but I think that it's an okay time in your life to say, hey, I need you to tell me some of the good things about me that you see as an outsider, because we are our own worst critics. And so to go to someone else and say, hey, I need to write an essay about how great I am, and I just don't see that in myself right now. Can you help me? And I think that it's an opportunity to have kind of genuine conversations and push past this stigma or this stereotype of like fishing for compliments. I think that can help you push yourself further. So that's definitely conversations that I wish I had, because I know that I got down on myself, and that is part of what kept me from striving for opportunities that I could have gone after. But I think more often than not, you'll find that it does, and you'll be surprised, and you'll surprise yourself with how big of an impact that can have.
Yeah, I think for me, I would definitely say something along the same lines, and that's really just make sure that you're looking for what you want and for what you want to be, not how you view yourself necessarily. I think a lot of us, as Dylan said, kind of didn't expect the Boettcher Scholarship to be an opportunity and maybe sort of discounted ourselves in the process. So I think going back, I would really just sort of yell at high school Ari and say, hey, you can do hard things. And that is a very achievable thing. And it's okay to want to do hard things, and it's okay to get your hopes up and to get excited about those things, even if they don't happen. But really just putting yourself out there and looking for sort of the you that you want to be. I think for me, that meant applying to the Boettcher Scholarship that was very focused on sort of leadership and community impact and helping people around me, which I think was something that I really grew to recognize as a very core value of mine throughout high school. And so applying to a scholarship that had that as a value was really a great step for me. But I think kind of just looking forward, look at the scholarships and the colleges and the things like that, reflect those values that you want to grow into and that allow you to have the room to evolve and to be even better and to try even harder things and really just make the difference that you want to make in the world.
Well, that's a great note to end on. And thank you to our audience for your questions and for being so engaged. This has been a great conversation. And huge thank you to our guests. You have provided such valuable insights. And thank you for being reflective and thinking through what it was like for you, because that is going to impact someone. We talk about that idea of the ripple effect. That's going to impact somebody who's listening right now and their application journey or someone that they know. So thank you. We really appreciate it. We look forward to sharing all the wisdom and none of the junk secrets of applying for college admission and scholarships this fall to empower the next generation of applicants to navigate applications with confidence and maybe a little bit more ease. Our website is boettcherfoundation.org. Look for more information about the book on our website and newsletters coming very soon. We're thrilled.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for facilitating this dialogue, and a huge thank you to Jhoany, Dylan, and Arianna for such thoughtful, honest, and inspiring conversations. And to everyone here at Scholars Experience in beautiful Loveland, thanks for being a part of this special weekend with us. As we celebrate 2 years of Colorado leadership stories, I'm reminded of why we started this podcast in the first place, to spotlight the everyday acts of courage, curiosity, and care that shape our communities. And what you just heard today, students showing up with authenticity, asking big questions, and sharing real advice, is leadership in action. Whether you're heading into high school, college, or your next big chapter, I hope you're walking away with a little more confidence and clarity. Because the truth is, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be willing to learn, ask for help, and lead from where you are. We're so excited to be releasing the new edition of All the Wisdom and None of the Junk this fall. And we hope it becomes one more tool in your toolbox as you take the next steps on your journey. Until next time, keep making those waves. And remember, you're not alone in this. This is Colorado Leadership Stories. Thanks for listening.